Hey, welcome back to the Ugly Hands on Expensive Instruments channel. Look at those mitts. No, it's the ZT Audio channel, and we're talking about the Fantom again today, the new Roland Fantom. And I want to talk about a feature today that it's in a lot of Roland instruments, and actually the same kind of feature is in a lot of instruments. It's just typical of Roland. They use a different terminology for it than other manufacturers do, and Roland calls it matrix control. Well, what is matrix control? Matrix control is really just a modulation matrix, and you've heard that referred to on many different synthesizers. The Rev 2 has a modulation matrix. The DeepMind 12 has a modulation matrix. Lots of things have a modulation matrix in them. Frankly, this isn't new to Roland. There's a matrix control or modulation control feature in the Roland JDXA, as well as the sort of mid-priced FA series workstations. It's on a lot of different Roland instruments. It's something I've never really played with a lot, though. I understand what it is and how it works, but I don't like the way that it's implemented on those instruments. In my opinion, it's a little bit crippled on the JDXA, and it's a little bit crippled on the FA and even the Integra sound engine with what you can do with it. However, it's pretty fully featured on the Fantom, and on top of that, the user interface makes it especially easy to deal with. So it's something that we can kind of show off pretty well. As usual, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a scene that is not used for anything, and I like to just kind of get everything kind of nulled out to 0 or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and choose zone 8, and in that sound, in that zone, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose, let's see, if I go to my zone view, hit zone 8, and I want to go to the wind category. So what do? I go to the wind category. You know, I can make this a lot easier if I just go over and hit the doggone wind button over here. So I'm going to do that. Hit wind, and I get soprano sax. So we'll go to one zone view, so I'm looking at my soprano sax. Again, I hit the wind button over there. You can do this all on the screen too, but it's easier for my purposes to just hit the sound selector there. And by default, I've got this soprano sax sound called up, and I've gone to my one zone view mode that you can get at in various ways as well. Well, to edit this, this sound, I can get into it a number of different ways. I can hit one of the parameter buttons over there, and it will call up the list of parameters that are available. But since I'm kind of keep this all to what you can see on the screen, I'm going to do it the other way, and there's lots of ways you can do things on the Fantom. I'm going to hit Menu, go to Tone Edit. So now we're editing the tone. One of the things you'll see right off the bat, if you've got a Fantom, is that you've got this wonderful touch screen that you can scroll around and do things with. There's also a couple of different ways you can edit things. There's something called the zoom mode, and in the zoom mode, when I'm editing something, these partials, there's kind of an interesting relationship that goes on here. You'll notice that in this sound, I've got partial 1, 2, and 3. This little yellow button is turned on and off. Turned on, and it's yellow, and I can turn it off, and it'll go to black. And then I've got these red or kind of pinkish, really, depending upon the light buttons, that I can turn on and off. Well, what's going on there is you're turning on and off whether or not the partial will sound. So I've turned them all off. If I turn them on, okay, now they're going to sound. Okay? This yellow button, when it's yellow, that means that you're able to edit that section. When it's black, that means you're not editing that section. And this is kind of handy because if you want to make some really big changes all at once, like for instance, say I wanted to take the filter and I wanted to change my cutoff all at once on them in this zoom mode, if I hit the filter cutoff, it's going to change for all of these partials at once because they're all selected for editing. Okay? And I'm going to put that, I don't know. That's good right there, whatever, somewhere in there. But if I turn those off, only the ones that are yellow will be affected in this zoomed in mode. And then again, you know, turning these on and off is whether the sound is on and off. So these are all on. And I've controlled the filter on all of them all at once. I'm now going to go to what they call the Pro mode. And in the Pro mode, hit the Pro Mode button, you get kind of like a grid of parameters here. And you'll notice a couple of things. One of them is if I go to this filter cutoff line, whatever, row, you'll notice that if I use the jog wheel, I'm going to use the jog wheel now, I can control these all at once. If I hit enter, either by tapping on the screen or hitting the enter button that's off to the right here, double click it, you'll get this scrolling list of values that you can call up, and that's sometimes handy as well. And you can do that either with the knob that's lit red here, or you can scroll through them, and then when you're done you hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel because I don't want to do anything with that. In this Pro mode, and you'll notice that it says Tone Edit Pro here. If I flip back, it'll say Tone Edit Zoom. Now we're in Tone Edit Pro. In this grid style, I get all of my parameters shown numerically right in one screen. And I can either address them individually by using the knobs down below here, or I can, as I did before, use the jog wheel, or I can address them all at once. I find this a lot handier to edit this way because I can see everything that's going on. For instance, I can see that this one's to a different value now, and I don't want it to a different value. So we'll put this to 454. There we go, boom. And scrolling through here, we get all these different various things about the sound that you can set. And this is where you do your sound programming, right? Select what oscillators you want, what pitch you want the oscillator at, you know, pitch envelope, filter envelope, amplifier envelope, all of the standard synthesizer controls. And of course, those controls are sitting off to the right there as well. And it's probably, in most cases, for basic synthesizer editing purposes, just use the doggone controls. That's why they're there. That's a pretty good interface if you ask me. But if we scroll down here or use the knob to go down here, we'll see we have something called matrix control. And matrix control works like this. We have a number of things that are called sources. That's the thing that's going to do the controlling. And then we have a number of destinations. And the destination is the thing that's going to be controlled. If you've used modulation matrices before, you realize that's a really simplified explanation, and that's why I'm doing it that way, because for people that haven't played with this before, I want to try and make this clear. So we're going to choose something on the machine to control some parameter of the sound, and then we're going to choose the parameter that's going to be controlled by it. Is that clear? I hope so. Right now, it's using a source called syscontrol. And syscontrol is kind of a global thing you can get into. I'm not going to talk about that a lot right now. You set it at the system level so that you can have these different controls at the system level that you can sort of set as defaults. But I don't find much use for it because, quite frankly, you can go into the list and you can choose any of these things that you want. And the choices that you have for what's going to be your control source is actually pretty extensive. You've got every possible MIDI controller number. They number them through about 95 or so, and then there's a few that are not numbered, but they're MIDI controllers anyway, like pitch bend, aftertouch. Those are MIDI controller numbers. In addition, you can choose, like we have here, system control 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's a global level setting. And then you've got these other things that are not, strictly speaking, not MIDI control change values, but they can be used as modulation sources. So we've got velocity, key follow, that's, you know, where you are on the keyboard, how high or low you are on the keyboard is going to affect it. The tempo of your sequencer, either one of the LFOs, the pitch envelope, the filter envelope, and the amplifier envelope. Those are all possible modulation sources. All those MIDI controller numbers and those additional things. So right now, what we've got is, I don't even know what it's doing. Okay? So what I'm going to do is, because somebody asked me to show off this in particular, I'm going to show you a particular thing you can do. I'm going to change this to aftertouch. Double click. Change it to aftertouch. Okay. And you'll see now that it's adding vibrato when I hit hard, not hit harder, but when I press harder. Hold the note, press harder, and it brings in vibrato. And that's because we're taking aftertouch, we're assigning it to the destination of pitch controlled by LFO number 1, and we're giving it a certain kind of sensitivity. And for purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to give it a much higher sensitivity. So when I demonstrate this, you're really seeing that it's doing something. In addition to that, you'll note that I've got a destination 2 here. So Aftertouch is also going to LFO1 rate with a sensitivity of 5 on partial number 1 and partial number 2. I have no idea why they didn't assign it to partial number 3, but watch what happens. When I play a note, you'll notice that there's already a little bit of vibrato in there, and it's going at a certain speed. About that speed. Since I have Aftertouch assigned to both controlling the pitch by LFO number 1 and LFO number 1's rate being increased by Aftertouch, it also increases the speed of the LFO. So that vibrato effect will get not only more intense when I use Aftertouch, but the speed will increase. So we've gone from about here, wah, 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 okay, to na 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 na, you know, and so a lot you can do here, and you can play with all these things to make them as subtle or as extreme as you want. Now, somebody asked a question of me in one of the forums, or not, I don't think it was directly of me, but somebody asked a question in one of the forums that I'm a part of, and they asked, I'm just zeroing these out to off. They wanted to know if there was a way you could do a pitch bend using Aftertouch, because they don't want to take their hands off the keyboard. They're maybe playing another keyboard with their left hand, and they want to do a lead with their right hand, and, you know, you'd have to take your left hand and use the pitch bend wheel or the paddle, the Roland style paddle, so you can't play with two hands that way. Well, can you do this? Yes, as a matter of fact, you can. Watch my destinations here. Double click there to get in there. And I'm going to say change this to pitch. Okay? So now Aftertouch is controlling pitch. Right now I've got a value of plus 20, which probably isn't very useful. With a little bit of experimentation, I found out that you can go from negative 63, which means that when you bottom this thing out, it's going to be an octave lower. So and of course, plus 63 would be an octave higher. I don't think that's what he had in mind, though, when he was talking about a pitch change. So let's do a couple of things. A little bit of experimentation. I found out that a value of plus 25 is just about a perfect whole note. So you get what's happening there. It's a little hard for me to do this because I've only got part of the keyboard shown here, but I'm hitting the note, holding it, and then when I press harder, it's bending up by one whole note. So I can now do solos. Just by playing the keyboard. Incidentally, I can also make that a whole note lower so that I can get effects that are similar to the way you would do a scoop on a harmonica or something like that. So I'm going to be using a combination of things. I'm going to be playing, you know, with a fast velocity. That's not affecting the pitch, but I'm going to be pressing hard at the same time, so you'll get this little scoop coming up to the sound as I kind of press in hard and then let up. So a lot can be done with this, and these are just kind of the basics of using the matrix control. You've got a lot you can work with here. You've got 4 partials. I'm only using 3 of them right now. Every part for each matrix control group, each partial can have 1 source and up to 4 destinations controlled by that source across 4 partials. So in one matrix control group, I've got 4 possible sources and 16 possible destinations. Another way to look at that is if I use all 4 groups, since I've got for each partial, I've got in each group 1 source and 4 destinations. By using all 4 matrix control groups, I've got for each partial. 4 possible sources and up to 16 different destinations. If you do the math, altogether that means with 4 partials, I've got 16 possible sources of modulation and 64? 64, 64 possible destinations. So there's a lot going on here that you can do. I mean, it's pretty crazy. And again, I just showed the basics today. In future videos, I'll be showing some ways that you can use this kind of modulation matrix or matrix control, both on the Fantom as well as other instruments, to really get some cool things happening. But even, you know, even what we're doing here, this kind of, you know, not bad stuff. So there's a lot in the modulation matrix feature that you can use, and thankfully on the Fantom, it's pretty doggone easy to do it. That's all I have for today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching. If you would be so kind, hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell. That way you'll make sure that you'll get new videos as they appear. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.